The base was quiet now. The smoke from the battle had cleared, but the smell of metal and ozone still lingered in the air. The humans were working non-stop, repairing walls, clearing debris, and checking for wounded. Despite everything they had been through, not one of them looked ready to give up. Korvac watched them from a distance. He had fought beside them, defended them, and yet, he still wasn't one of them. Soldiers saluted him when he passed, but there was a mix of curiosity and caution in their eyes. They respected his strength, but they didn't trust him. Not yet. Dr. Evelyn Hart, however, treated him differently. She didn't look at him as a weapon. She looked at him as a mystery that needed understanding. That morning, she found him sitting near the wreckage of the hangar, staring at a piece of broken drone. The metal was burned and cracked, but Korvac's focus was deep. "Studying your enemy?" she asked softly. Korvac turned his head slightly. "Understanding. The Dominion does not tolerate failure. They will come again, stronger next time." Evelyn sat beside him on a crate. "Then we'll be ready." He looked at her, confused. "You have seen their power. You cannot win a war against them." She smiled faintly. "You haven't met all of humanity yet." Korvac's eyes glowed softly, recording her expression. "You believe your kind can defeat the Dominion?" "I believe in what humans do best," she replied. "We adapt. We survive. No matter who or what comes for us." Her words stayed in his mind long after she left. That evening, Korvac walked through the base alone. He passed soldiers joking quietly, engineers rebuilding machinery, and medics tending to the injured. No one complained. Everyone worked together, united by one goal: survival. He thought of the Zarn Dominion. Their soldiers followed orders because of fear. Scientists served because they were programmed to. Unity in the Dominion was created by control. But here, unity came from something else: choice. He entered the main lab, where Evelyn was analyzing data. The glow from her screens reflected off her glasses. She looked up as he entered. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "I do not require rest as humans do," he said. "I process data." She smiled. "Must be nice. Humans need sleep and coffee." "Coffee," she pointed to her mug. "It helps us stay awake. Bitter but useful." Korvac tilted his head. "You consume chemicals to force your body to keep working?" "Pretty much," she said with a grin. "It's our way of fighting nature." He considered that. "You fight even against your own limits. That's what we do." Evelyn turned her screen so he could see. "I've been studying your armor's energy system. It adapts to different power sources." "That's incredible engineering." Korvac nodded. "The Dominion designed it to survive any environment. Efficiency is our way of control." She looked at him. "But you're more than a design, aren't you? You think for yourself." He was silent for a moment. "I think within boundaries." "What boundaries?" she asked. Korvac looked out the window. "Obedience. The Dominion created me to serve. Disobedience is not permitted. But since coming here, I have begun to question that." Evelyn studied him quietly. "Questioning doesn't make you broken, Korvac. It makes you alive." The room fell silent except for the hum of the machines. For the first time, Korvac didn't feel like a weapon. He felt like a being trying to understand his place in the universe. Days passed. The humans began preparing for the next possible attack. Korvac trained with the soldiers, teaching them how to read Zarn tactics, how to move unpredictably, and how to fight machines with minimal technology. He was impressed by how fast they learned. They asked questions, tried new methods, even improved his own strategies. One day, during a training session, a young soldier named Mason asked, "Sir, do you ever get scared?" Korvac turned to him. "Fear is a signal. It helps the body react to danger." "I was engineered without it," Mason nodded. "That sounds nice." Korvac looked at the human closely. "No, it is not. Without fear, one cannot know courage." The soldiers went quiet. They respected him more after that. That night, Evelyn reviewed combat footage. Watching Korvac train her people filled her with both pride and worry. He was more than they had expected, and maybe more than even he realized. When she visited him again, she found him standing outside under the stars. The air was cool, and the faint hum of generators filled the silence. "Those stars," he said without turning. "So many worlds. The Dominion sees them as resources. You see them as dreams." She stepped beside him. "Do your people ever dream, Korvac?" "I was not built to." Paused. "But since meeting your kind, I have begun to imagine what it would be like to live without command." Evelyn looked at him gently. "You could choose that. You don't have to go back." His eyes glowed brighter. "If I stay, the Dominion will send more. They will not stop." "Then we'll fight," she said firmly. He turned to her. "You truly believe you can stop them?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "But we'll try. And that's what makes us human." Korvac stared at her, studying every word. Humans did not need certainty to fight. Their strength came from trying, from believing. It was something the Dominion had never understood. The next morning, something strange happened. The communications tower picked up a transmission, not human, not Zarn military, but encrypted Dominion code. Korvac's sensors recognized it immediately. He rushed to the command center. "They are sending a message to me." Evelyn and Reeves looked up from their consoles. "To you?" Reeves asked. "Yes," Korvac replied. "They demand a report." Evelyn frowned. "If you don't respond, won't that make them suspicious?" "It already has," Korvac said. "They will assume I have been captured. A retrieval fleet will come soon." "How soon?" "Days. Maybe less." Reeves slammed his hand on the table. "Then we have to prepare for a full-scale invasion." Evelyn looked at Korvac. "Can you stop them?" He hesitated. "One soldier cannot stop a fleet. But maybe I can delay them." "By doing what?" She asked quietly. "By sending a false report," he said. "If I tell them humanity is not worth invading, too primitive, too dangerous, they may delay action." Reeves frowned. "Would they believe that?" Korvac's voice lowered. "They might. The Dominion does not waste resources on hopeless battles." Evelyn stepped closer. "And if they find out you lied, then they will destroy me." The room went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. After a long pause, Evelyn said softly, "You don't have to do this." Korvac looked at her. "If I do nothing, your species dies. If I lie, I may die, but you live. That is an easy calculation." Evelyn shook her head. "You're more human than you think." He didn't respond, but his eyes dimmed, not from weakness, but from thought. That night, Korvac transmitted the false report. He described Earth as unstable, unpredictable, and unworthy of conquest. "Humans," he wrote, "are chaotic, self-destructive, and dangerous even to themselves. They are not suitable for integration." The message was sent across the stars, encoded to appear authentic. When it was done, Korvac stood silently, looking out at the horizon. Evelyn joined him once again. "You did it," he said. "Now we wait." She studied him. "You could have gone back to them. You didn't have to stay." Korvac turned to her. "There are things on this planet worth staying for." "Like what?" He paused. "Like hope." The next few days passed quietly. Repairs continued. Communication systems were restored, and the humans began building underground shelters. Korvac helped design new defenses using Dominion technology. He shared everything he knew: energy shielding, drone countermeasures, and stealth tactics. The soldiers began to trust him fully now. They even started calling him by name Kor. At night, he would sit with them by the fire, listening to their stories. He learned about music, about families, about laughter, things the Dominion never had. And for the first time, Korvac realized what made humanity strong. It wasn't their weapons or their intelligence. It was something deeper, their ability to care, to hope. Even in the darkest times, that was their hidden power. But far above Earth, deep in the void of space, the Zarn Dominion was not convinced. A shadowy figure stood before a massive screen reading Korvac's report. "Unstable? Dangerous?" The commander growled. Interesting. He turned to his officers. Prepare a fleet. We will see how dangerous these humans truly are. The first signs appeared as small flashes in the night sky. Satellites detected unusual energy patterns, then massive streaks of light, ships entering Earth's orbit. The Zarn fleet had arrived. Colonel Reeves stood on the observation deck staring at the alien armada. "They're bigger than we thought," he muttered. His voice carried tension, but beneath it there was calm. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. Evelyn stood beside him, holding a tablet. "Kor, what do we do?" Korvac observed silently, his armor glinting under the overhead lights. He had warned them weeks ago. Now the fleet hovered above their planet, thousands of ships bristling with weapons, ready to destroy everything below. "The Dominion expects me to clear a path," he said quietly. "They will send soldiers to remove you before the invasion. I must decide whether to follow orders." Reeves blinked. "You mean, you might fight us?" Korvac shook his head. "I do not know. The humans. They are different. I am learning something the Dominion cannot understand." Evelyn studied him carefully. "What is that?" "Courage," he said. "Not born from fear, but from will. You fight not because you must, but because you choose to." Inside the base, preparations were underway. Troops were mobilized, civilians evacuated, and weapons were readied. Korvac moved alongside them, sharing strategies. Enhancing their defenses with his knowledge of Zarn technology, he taught them how to cloak equipment, how to anticipate drone patterns, and how to detect invisible ships. Every lesson made them stronger, and every strategy gave him pause. These humans were adapting faster than any species he had tested before. In the mess hall, a young pilot approached him nervously. "Kor, do you think we can really win?" Korvac looked down at him, his voice calm and metallic. "Win, perhaps. Survive. Likely. Humans excel at survival." The pilot nodded, swallowing hard. "Then we fight." That word fight resonated in Korvac's processors. In the Dominion, victory was always measured by destruction, not survival. These humans measured strength differently. Hours later, the first wave of Zarn troops arrived. They descended in dropships, moving silently toward the base. Korvac met them outside the main gates. He could have easily cut them down, but as he looked at the humans behind him, he hesitated. Colonel Reeves shouted, "Kor, what are you waiting for?" Korvac turned his visor toward the soldiers. "I must decide. The Dominion commands obedience. Yet, these humans have given me reason to question." The Zarn dropships landed. Alien soldiers, faster and stronger than humans, poured out, weapons raised. Korvac stepped forward. He could feel the Dominion in his mind, a constant pull, a reminder of loyalty and purpose. But as he looked at Evelyn, standing tall despite fear, and at the soldiers ready to defend their home, something inside him shifted. He raised his voice. "Humans, fight." The humans charged, following every tactic he had taught. Korvac moved with them, striking Zarn soldiers with precise efficiency. His armor absorbed energy blasts. His enhanced strength allowed him to lift debris and use it as weapons. The first clash was chaotic, a blur of motion, sparks, and alien energy. Yet the humans adapted constantly, using traps, cover, and ingenuity to turn the battle in their favor. Korvac realized that what made them dangerous was not brute strength. It was their ability to think and improvise under pressure, amid the battle. Korvac faced the commander of the Zarn Vanguard, a towering alien with armor similar to his own. The commander's voice was mechanical, echoing in Korvac's mind. "Obey. Destroy them. Return to the Dominion." Korvac shook his head. "I will not obey." Not this time. The two clashed. Energy blades met with bone-jarring force. Sparks flew, and the ground shook. Korvac's training and enhancements gave him the edge. But the commander was relentless, calculating, and brutal. Nearby, Evelyn and the soldiers watched in awe as Korvac fought not for conquest, but for survival for them. "You're on our side?" Reeves shouted over the noise. Korvac didn't answer. His focus was absolute. Every strike was precise. every movement anticipated. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't fighting for orders. He was fighting for something he chose. Hours passed. The Zarn troops began to retreat as their losses mounted. The humans held their ground, inspired by Korvac's leadership and tactics. He moved through the battlefield, guiding soldiers, shielding civilians, taking down key enemy units. Finally, he faced the Zarn commander alone. The two locked eyes, one a weapon of creation, the other a being of choice. "You betray your empire," the commander growled. "You will be destroyed." Korvac raised his blade. "I serve no empire. I serve those who choose to fight." The duel ended with a decisive strike. Korvac's enhanced armor and combat knowledge gave him the victory. The Zarn commander lay defeated, and the remaining troops retreated to orbit. For the first time, Korvac felt something new. Relief, but also pride. He had chosen freedom over obedience. After the battle, the base was quiet. Humans worked tirelessly to repair damage, care for the injured, and reinforce defenses. Korvac moved through the corridors, observing them. He noticed their fatigue, but also their determination. They were exhausted, yet ready to continue. Evelyn approached him, her face smeared with dust. "You didn't have to stay," she said softly. "You could have gone back to the Dominion." Korvac looked at her, his voice calm but carrying weight. "If I had left, you would have been slaughtered. I cannot ignore choice when it matters. You matter." She smiled faintly. "We fight because we care. That's what makes us human." He paused. "Care is a strange power. Stronger than weapons, stronger than orders. Perhaps that is why you survive where others fail." For the first time, he felt a kinship with humans, not as a superior being observing a weaker one, but as an ally standing among equals. The night was quiet. The stars shone above, unbroken and eternal. Korvac stood outside the repaired base, looking at the sky. He thought of the Dominion, thousands of light years away, the fleets they would send. He also thought of Earth, its people, their courage, their unity. They had fought back when everything seemed impossible. They had adapted, survived, and inspired him in the process. A human child ran past, carrying a small flag they had made. "Look, we won," the child shouted. Korvac watched silently. He realized the humans were not just survivors. They were a force, a species that would not submit, that would not yield, no matter the odds. He turned to Evelyn, who had joined him. "Your species. They are dangerous," he said. She smiled. "That's what makes us human." He nodded. "Dangerous, yes, but worthy of protection." Evelyn looked at him, hope in her eyes. "Then you'll fight with us?" Korvac hesitated, remembering the Dominion's reach, their expectations, their power. Then he made his choice. "I fight with you. Not because I am ordered, but because I choose to." In that moment, the Zarn Dominion was no longer his master. Humanity, flawed, stubborn, relentless, had claimed him as an ally. And together, they would prepare for whatever came next. But somewhere in the dark reaches of space, the Dominion was watching. The report had been sent, the fleet had been delayed, and now a new variable had entered their calculations, a weapon they had created, who had chosen humanity over empire. Korvac's rebellion was not just survival, it was a declaration. Humanity had proven that even the most advanced weapons could not break the human spirit, and that sometimes the strongest force in the galaxy was choice itself. The Zarn fleet hovered over Earth like a dark cloud, thousands of ships blocking out the stars. The air trembled with energy pulses as orbital cannons charged, ready to strike. Every human on the planet felt the weight of the threat, yet no one fled. Colonel Reeves stood on the command deck, surveying the situation. Soldiers manned every station, engineers ran diagnostics, and civilians moved to underground shelters. Every action was precise, coordinated, and deliberate. Humanity had never faced an enemy like this, and yet they did not falter. Korvac stood beside Reeves, his armor reflecting the lights from the control panels. For weeks, he had prepared Earth for this day. He had taught the humans Zarn tactics, improved their weapon systems, and trained them to fight smart. But even with all that, he knew that Dominion's might was overwhelming. Kor Reeves said quietly, "They outnumber us 10 to 1. Korvac scanned the fleet, his sensors calculating trajectories, energy levels, and firing patterns. "Numbers alone are not decisive," he said. "They are efficient but predictable. Humans are not." Evelyn joined them, holding a tablet filled with schematics. "Kor, they're sending their strike ships in. We have minutes before impact." Korvac's visor glowed faintly. "Then we fight. Not because we are ordered, but because we choose to survive." As the first Zarn strike hit near a coastal city, explosions shook the ground, sending fire and smoke into the sky. Humans on the surface took cover, but the defenses Korvac had helped install held firm. Energy shields activated, redirecting blasts, while counter-drones targeted the Zarn ships. Korvac led a squad of human soldiers to intercept. Dropships attempting to land near the base, they moved like shadows, using debris and terrain to stay hidden. Every move had been planned, every strike calculated, yet humans still improvised. Changing tactics mid-battle, a dropship descended, releasing a squad of elite Zarn soldiers. Korvac stepped forward, energy blade in hand. The aliens were faster, stronger, and heavily armored. But Korvac knew their patterns. He guided the soldiers. Using the environment to slow the enemy, a human engineer rolled a small drone into the path of the Zarn, emitting an electromagnetic pulse that disabled their weapons. Soldiers surged forward, striking with precision. Korvac watched, silently impressed. The humans adapted faster than any species he had ever seen. High above, a Zarn fleet fired energy beams trying to destroy key cities. Satellites intercepted some, but many beams reached the surface. Korvac activated an ancient prototype of the Dominion's energy shield, a massive barrier surrounding the largest city. Sparks flew as beams struck, but the shield held. "Kor, they're focusing fire on the shield." A soldier shouted. Korvac adjusted the energy matrix. "Then we make them think it will break. That is the opportunity." He signaled the human pilots, young men and women, in small, outdated spacecraft. With Korvac guiding them, they used feints, decoys, and unpredictable flight patterns. Zarn targeting systems were thrown off. One by one, human ships struck weak points in the fleet. Damaging engines and creating confusion, Evelyn watched the battle unfold on her console. "There, improvising." Korvac turned to her. "Improvisation is humanity's greatest weapon."
Hours passed.
Cities were battered, but humans held together. Underground shelters kept civilians safe, while soldiers, engineers, and pilots coordinated like a single organism. Korvac fought alongside them, cutting through elite Zarn forces, rescuing trapped squads, and guiding defensive strategies. He found himself in the heart of the battlefield, where the Zarn commander who had survived the first encounter awaited. The alien's armor was cracked. Energy blades hummed with lethal force. "You betrayed the Dominion," the commander hissed. "You will pay." "I serve no Dominion," Korvac said. "I serve those who choose to fight." The two clashed. Sparks flew, energy beams slicing the air. Korvac fought not for conquest, but for survival, for the humans who had trusted him, for the planet that had given him purpose beyond orders nearby. Soldiers followed his lead, striking with courage and ingenuity. Engineers launched homemade devices, setting traps and redirecting Zarn energy. Pilots dove through fleets, using every trick Korvac had taught them. Humanity was everywhere at once, chaotic yet perfectly coordinated. The Zarn commander fell at last, defeated. Korvac stood over him, breathing heavily. The remaining Zarn forces hesitated, shaken by the humans' resilience and unpredictability. With the commander gone, Korvac turned to the human forces. "They will retreat if we do not attack recklessly," he said. "We must hold the line and strike strategically. Every human must fight as one mind." And they did. Cities became fortified battle zones. Streets were used as choke points. Drones and energy turrets defended key locations. Humans had transformed the planet into a living weapon, every civilian a part of the defense. Every soldier a vital link. The Dominion ships attempted orbital strikes, but Korvac predicted their movements. Using a combination of shield projections, EMP bursts, and rapid maneuvers, the humans disrupted targeting systems. A massive fleet that should have crushed the planet was now scattered and vulnerable. From his perch on a skyscraper, Korvac watched as humans coordinated attacks like a single organism. Engineers repaired damaged defenses while soldiers redirected energy beams. Pilots looped around enemy ships, striking from angles no Zarn could predict. "This is remarkable," Korvac muttered. "They fight not for orders, but for each other." Night fell. The battle continued, but the tide had turned. The Zarn fleet, confident in overwhelming power, was now fractured, confused, and suffering heavy losses. Human forces moved with precision, striking weak points and retreating before retaliation. Evelyn approached Korvac, her face smudged with dirt and sweat. "Kor, they're pulling back." "The fleet. It's retreating." Korvac watched through his sensors. "Yes, they are learning that humanity cannot be broken with force alone." They did not anticipate unity. They did not anticipate will. Reeves nodded. "They underestimated us, and you helped show them why." Korvac remained silent. His mind processed the battlefield, noting every human action. They had not only survived, they had adapted and won. And in that, he saw something he had never witnessed before. A species that could rival the Dominion in ways numbers and weapons could not measure. The next morning, the Zarn fleet disappeared beyond the horizon. Their message was clear. Earth was not to be conquered, at least. Not yet. Humanity had survived. Humanity had fought back. Humanity had shown that even the most advanced empire could not predict the strength of a species that fought for choice, for home, and for each other. Korvac walked among the humans, helping rebuild, distributing supplies, and teaching soldiers better tactics for future threats. He was no longer just an alien warrior. He had become something new, an ally, protector, and a teacher. Children ran past him, waving flags and cheering. Civilians thanked him. Soldiers saluted him. But Korvac noticed something that surprised him most. He was smiling. Not the artificial simulation of emotion, but a real sense of belonging. Evelyn approached him once more. "You could have gone back to the Dominion," she said softly. "You chose to stay." "Why?" Korvac paused. He looked at the humans rebuilding, laughing, and protecting each other. "Because you fight for something greater than orders. You fight for choice. You fight for hope, and hope is worth standing beside." She nodded. "Welcome to humanity, Kor." For the first time, Korvac felt that he belonged somewhere. Not because he was commanded to be there, but because he had chosen to be. Weeks later, the base was fully repaired. Humanity had survived the Zarn attack, but they knew the Dominion would return. Still, Korvac had taught them lessons no other species could. They had learned that survival was not just about strength, it was about unity, creativity, and courage. From space, the Zarn Dominion recalculated their strategy. They had underestimated Earth. They had underestimated humanity. And above all, they had underestimated the alien they had sent to test the humans, the one who had become their ally instead of their weapon. Korvac stood atop a rebuilt command center, looking up at the stars. "They will return," he said quietly. "Yes," Evelyn replied, standing beside him. "But next time, we'll be ready." He nodded. For the first time, he was not the hunter. He was part of something larger, a species that refused to bow, refused to surrender, and refused to be broken. And in that, Korvac realized the truth the Dominion could never understand. You do not test humanity. You survive them if you are lucky. The Galactic Academy of Knowledge stood at the edge of the Orion Nebula, a giant structure made of silver glass and energy light. It was a place where hundreds of alien species came to learn, live, and work together. For many, it was the safest and brightest place in the galaxy where peace and curiosity replaced war and fear. But peace trembled the morning a Gorvath walked into class. The Gorvath were known across the stars as monsters of Wartal scaled, and strong enough to bend steel with their claws. Their homeworld, Vargan, was a planet where survival meant strength. Most species feared them, and for good reason. Wherever Gorvaths went, silence followed. This Gorvath's name was Rark. He was taller than any student in the class, his gray armor-like skin reflecting the room's light. His eyes glowed faintly yellow, and his claws clicked softly on the metal floor as he entered. His shoulders were wide, his posture tense. Every movement looked like it could break something. The classroom full of young aliens froze. A few whispered. Some even shifted their chairs away. The teacher, a soft-voiced avian with translucent wings, tried to act calm. But even her feathers trembled. "Class," she said, forcing a smile. "This is our new transfer student from Vargan. Please welcome Rark." Silence. Not one creature clapped or spoke. Then from the back of the room, someone did. A pair of human hands came together, clapping slowly and confidently. The sound broke through the tension like light through fog. Every head turned. It was a human girl, sitting in the last row, smiling as if nothing unusual had happened. Her hair was short, her uniform slightly messy, and her bright eyes were full of curiosity instead of fear. She said, "Welcome, Rark." Rark blinked, unsure how to react. His instincts told him this was a trick. No one greeted Gorvaths kindly. He lowered his gaze and gave a stiff nod, then walked toward an empty seat at the edge of the room until the teacher spoke again. "Rark, you'll be sharing a workstation with Alina Ward." The class gasped. The human raised her hand cheerfully. "That's me," she said. Rark froze mid-step. His chest tightened. Partnered with a human? He had heard of them, teeny, fragile creatures from a small blue planet. They were new to the Galactic Alliance, famous for their strange bravery and unpredictable actions. Many called them reckless. He took his seat beside her, carefully keeping his claws away from the desk. The chair creaked under his weight. He could feel the other students staring at him. Alina leaned over with a grin. "Hey, Rark, you nervous?" He blinked again. "I do not experience." "Nervous," she chuckled. "Sure you don't." The teacher began explaining the day's lesson, but Rark barely listened. His focus stayed on his breathing, on not breaking the chair, on not scaring anyone. The human beside him smelled faintly of soap and something sweet completely unlike the heavy air of Varg. And when class ended, the other students rushed out quickly. Alina stayed behind, gathering her datapads. Rark stood up to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Hey, you hungry?" she asked. He turned, confused. "Hungry?" "Yeah," she said, lifting her lunch bag. "Cafeteria's still open. You can join me if you want." He hesitated. On his world, meals were shared only among battlekin. To eat with someone was a sign of trust. "You would share food with me?" he asked slowly. She shrugged. "Why not? You're my partner now, right?" Something stirred inside him, a feeling he didn't recognize. He followed her quietly through the crowded halls, ignoring the whispers that followed them. The cafeteria went silent when they entered. Students stared. A Gorvath walking beside a human was a sight no one expected. Rark could feel their eyes, heavy with judgment. He lowered his head slightly, trying to appear smaller. Alina, however, walked proudly, humming softly to herself as she found an empty table in the corner. She sat down and opened her food pack. "Here," she said, sliding a small container toward him. "It's just fruit, but it's good." He looked at it with suspicion. "This is safe for Gorvath consumption." She grinned. "Probably. Try it." He hesitated again, then carefully picked up a piece with his clawed fingers and tasted it. The flavor was light and strange sweet, unlike anything from Vargon. His eyes widened slightly. "Good?" she asked. "Acceptable," he said quietly. She laughed, the sound bright and fearless. "You're funny." He didn't understand why that made his chest feel warm. Days turned into weeks. At first, while students avoided Rark, some whispered behind his back. Others made sure to switch seats and shared lectures. But Alina never changed. She talked to him every day, laughed at his serious replies, and treated him like any normal classmate. Rark tried to understand her. She was not strong or fast. She could not lift heavy metal or see in darkness. Yet she spoke to everyone, no matter their species. Even when someone ignored her, she still smiled. One afternoon, during a joint lab exercise, Rark noticed her struggling to reach a tool on a high shelf. He silently picked it up and handed it to her. "Thanks," she said. "You're pretty useful, you know." He tilted his head. "Useful?" "Yeah, you pay attention. You help without making a big deal about it." He thought for a moment, then nodded. "You are different from others," she smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." That night, alone in his small dorm room, Rark looked at his reflection in the mirror. His yellow eyes stared back at him. His kind had always been told they were monsters born to fight, born to destroy. But the human girl had looked at him with something else in her eyes. Not fear, not pity, respect. It unsettled him. He didn't understand why her words mattered so much. But they did. The next morning, something unexpected happened. As Rark entered class, a small alien studenta, tiny being called a Zin, dropped its datapad. Before Rark could stop himself, he knelt down and handed it back. The Zin squeaked out a quiet thank you before rushing off. Rark noticed the silence that followed. Everyone had seen it. Alina leaned over and whispered, "See? You're already changing things." "Changing?" he asked. "Yeah," she said with a grin. "People think you're scary, but they're starting to see the real you." He didn't reply, but inside, something shifted again. For the first time since arriving, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he belonged here. Later that week, during a training session in the Academy's simulation dome, Rark's strength accidentally damaged a piece of equipment. The instructor shouted, "Gorvath, control your power." Rark froze, embarrassed. The room filled with murmurs. But before the instructor could continue, Alina stepped forward. "It was an accident," she said firmly. "He's trying his best. Maybe you should give him better equipment next time." The instructor blinked in surprise, then sighed. "Very well. Let's continue." Rark looked at her, unsure how to express the strange feeling in his chest. "You defended me," he said later. "Of course," she replied. "That's what friends do." "Friends," he repeated quietly, as if testing the word. No one on Paragon used that word. Not like this. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the Academy, Rark found himself sitting alone outside the training field, watching the stars. He thought of his old world of endless battles and cold nights. And he thought of the human girl who had smiled without fear. Maybe, he wondered, the universe wasn't as cruel as he had been taught, for the first time in his life. Rark felt something close to peace. He looked up at the night sky, where millions of stars burned like tiny suns, and whispered quietly to himself, "Perhaps monsters can learn too." The days passed slowly at the Galactic Academy of Knowledge, but for Rark, each day was full of small surprises. He had come to this place expecting fear, silence, and distance. That was what he was used to. But ever since he met Alina Ward, the human girl who sat beside him in class, everything felt different. She talked to him like he was normal. She laughed at his serious answers, asked about his world, and never looked away from his eyes. For someone so small and fragile, she carried herself like she feared nothing in the universe, and that confused Rark more than anything. Their partnership in class had now become famous across the academy. "Can you believe that, human?" whispered a slim green-scaled student one day. "She sits with a Gorvath like it's nothing. She's either brave or crazy," another replied. Rark could hear them easily. His species had sharp hearing, sharper than most, but he never responded. He simply focused on the lesson. He had promised himself not to draw attention, not to give anyone a reason to fear him again. Alina, on the other hand, had no such worries. When she noticed the whispers, she just rolled her eyes and whispered back to Rark, "Ignore them. They'll stop once they get bored." He looked down at her. They will not stop. Fear does not fade so easily. And then we'll just prove them wrong, she said with a grin. Together. Her confidence sounded impossible, but also comforting. Their biggest challenge came during the joint species project. Each student pair had to create a working scientific model showing the combined use of both their species' technologies. It was meant to test cooperation between different races. Most teams worked smoothly, but everyone secretly waited to see how the Gorvath and the human would perform. When the announcement came, Rark straightened in his seat. "We will begin immediately," he said, his tone firm and professional. Alina smiled. "Relax, big guy. It's a project, not a battle." He blinked. "Projects are to be won." She laughed. Okay, we'll win, but without scaring anyone, all right?" He gave a slow nod. Agreed. They met every evening in the laboratory. Rark was careful with every move. His claws were large, and the tools were tiny. More than once, he accidentally bent a connector or cracked a data chip. Each time, he apologized and pulled his hands back. But Alina never scolded him. She just smiled and said, "It's fine, you're learning." "I am breaking your work," he said one night, frustrated. "Perhaps you should choose another partner." "Not a chance," she replied quickly. "You're strong, and I'm quick. We balance each other. That's how teams work." He stared at her, unsure how to respond. Balance. No one had ever used that word with him before. On his planet, there were only leaders and followers, hunters and prey. But Alina spoke as if they were equal. It felt strange. And good, as days went by, they built a small energy generator. Powered by Gorvath mineral cells and human wave stabilizers, it was a mix of strength and precision just like them. One night, while testing the final prototype, a sudden spark shot out of the machine. The lab lights flickered, and a wave of heat burst from the device. Alina stumbled backward, the flames rising. Without thinking, Rock moved. He grabbed the hot metal frame with his bare claws, crushing it to stop the fire from spreading. The heat burned into his scales, but he didn't let go until it was safe. Smoke filled the room. Alarms blared. Alina coughed, her face covered in dust. "York, you okay?" He looked at his hands. The claws were blackened at the edges, but he nodded. "Minimal damage?" "Minimal?" she said, shaking her head. "You just grabbed a burning generator." "I acted," he said simply. "You were in danger." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then softly she said, "You're not a monster, Rark. You just think you are. Linked." The words hit him harder than the heat. He didn't answer, but something deep inside him changed. The next day, everyone in the academy had heard about the incident. Rumors spread quickly. "They say the Gorvath saved her." "No way, he probably caused it." Still, the human didn't blame him. When Rark entered the cafeteria that morning, the whispers were louder than ever. He walked carefully, keeping his head down. Then, to his surprise, a small alien Azin student stepped aside to make space for him in line. It wasn't much, but it was new. Alina sat waiting at their usual table. When he joined her, she said casually, "You know, you're kind of famous now." He frowned. "Fame is unnecessary." "Yeah," she said, smiling, "but respect isn't, and you're starting to earn it." He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. As the week continued, something else began to change. Other students started approaching them carefully, slowly, but without the same fear. One day, a young Varnak student asked Gorvath, "Rark, can you help us lift this equipment?" Rark hesitated. "Yes," he said after a pause. He lifted it easily. The students thanked him and walked away smiling. Alina elbowed him lightly. "See, you're becoming popular." He gave a small huff, almost like a laugh. "I do not understand why strength makes others friendly now. Before, it made them afraid." "Because they're learning what kind of strength you have," she said. "The kind that protects, not destroys." He thought about that all night. Later that month, their project was finally complete, and it was their turn to present. The hall was filled with curious students and teachers. Alina stood proudly beside the glowing generator. "We combine Gorvath's mineral energy with human stability control," she explained. "It's strong, but it doesn't explode, usually." The audience laughed lightly. Even Rark allowed himself a small smile. Alina continued, This project is about trust. When we started, everyone thought a Gorvath and a human couldn't work together, but we did. And that's the point. Sometimes you just need to see each other as more than what the stories say. Rark looked at her as she spoke. Her voice was steady and warm. When she finished, she glanced at him, silently inviting him to say something. He stepped forward slowly, his deep voice echoing through the hall. On my world, I was told that weakness is shame, that fear is power. But the human taught me something else. To build, not destroy. To listen, not command. I thank her. In this academy. The hall went silent for a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, applause filled the room. For the first time in his life, Rark wasn't being feared. He was being respected. After the presentation, as they walked back to their classroom, Alina grinned. You did great, Yerk. He nodded. We succeeded. Our project worked. Not just the project, she said softly. You worked. You changed things. He looked at her, unsure how to reply. He wanted to tell her that no one had ever spoken to him like that no one had ever believed in him before. But the words stayed locked inside. Instead, he said quietly, Thank you, Alina Ward. She smiled. You can just call me Alina. He hesitated, then nodded once. Thank you, Alina. That night, the academy sky was clear. The stars above shimmered like silver dust. Rark stood on one of the observation decks. Watching them, he thought about the strange human who had turned his world upside down. Her kindness was confusing, her courage unbelievable. But her friendship was real. For the first time, he didn't feel like an outsider in this place. He lifted his clawed hand and looked at the burn marks left from the accident. They would heal, but he didn't want them to disappear. They reminded him of something important. They reminded him of her words. You're not a monster, Rark. You just think you are. He closed his eyes and let the memory echo in his mind. Maybe she was right. Maybe monsters were only real if they chose to be.